Okay, Splatterheads, if you watched the previous review of A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, you would have heard me say that the next review would be more of a rant, and I won't disappoint. So let's get ready to dive into the slow descent of the Elm Street series with the review of A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child. Released in 1989, A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child continues the tale of Freddy Krueger, the malevolent dream stalker who uses the dream world as his haunting ground. Directed by Stephen Hopkins, this fifth installment in the iconic horror series delves into darker, more gothic territory, blending surreal imagery with a macabre narrative. The story centers on Alice Johnson, played by Lisa Wilcox, the protagonist of the fourth film, who finds herself battling Freddy one more time. This time, the stakes are even higher as Freddy attempts to use the dream of her unborn child as a pathway to unleash his terror on new victims. The film explores themes of motherhood, guilt, and the lingering trauma of Freddy Krueger's legacy, offering a slightly more psychological twist than its predecessors. Visually, The Dream Child is ambitious, leaning heavily on grotesque and elaborate set designs that reflect the gothic horror tone. The dream sequences are creative and unnerving, showcasing Freddy's nightmarish dominion with a surreal flair. However, while the visual effects stand out, the narrative occasionally struggles under the weight of its own ambition. The plot feels disjointed at times, and some of the characters are lacking depth, leaving the emotional stakes underdeveloped. Robert Englund's portrayal of Freddy Krueger remains a highlight, balancing dark humor with menacing intensity. While his quips are memorable, the film leans too heavily on the comedic side, which slightly undercuts the horror. Lisa Wilcox delivers a strong performance as Alice, showing resilience and vulnerability, but the supporting cast struggles to leave a lasting impression on the moviegoers. While The Dream Child falters in its pacing and its tone, the film juggles its gothic horror aspirations with the slasher formula, but the mix doesn't always gel right, Splatterheads. Some sequences drag, and the narrative momentum wavers, leaving an uneven viewing experience. But Splatterheads, this film is a cinematic mess. While New Line Cinema elected to bring back Lisa Wilcox's character Alice and Dan's character Dan, the film strays heavily away from the Dream Master's creativity and the character arcs. While we care about Alice, characters like Yvonne and Greta and Mark fall extremely flat due to the lack of time spent on developing their characters. Not only that, but there is only 3 kills in this movie, Splatterheads. Up to this point in the series, Fredheads are used to multiple kills in the movies. Kills that are in the range of 4 to 6. The original had 4. The second one had Coach Snyder, Grady, and a ton of the kids at the pool party. Dream Warriors had 6, while Dream Master had 6, and in Dream Child, the kill falls flat. The kills fall underwhelmingly to 3 kills. 2 of the 3 kills are memorable, while Greta's kill is a little overkill, Splatterheads. In this film, the one-liners are overused and they never hit their mark. From the opening of the movie, it seems as if the direction wants you to root for Freddy Krueger and not the survivors of the last installment. Robert Englund continues to ham it up, only having dialogue that will be found on the front of a movie poster. But seeing that there's no imagery that gave me nightmares as a child, let's go over some of the positives and negatives of A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child. One positive that sticks out to me is Alice's father, Mr. Johnson's story arc, and we see a positive turn from the previous film. In The Dream Master, Dennis Johnson was an abusive drunk, mistreating Alice and undermining her fears and emotions. In The Dream Child, his character has quit drinking and he plays more of a caring father/grandfather role. Another positive thing in this movie was Mark's death. That was the best kill in the movie. The way the scene was drained of all his color besides Mark was a very great addition to the film. With Freddy using Mark's passion for comics against him, Freddy rips Mark into shreds while collapsing the warehouse structure that's around him. I also like the fact that the story writers took a chance and incorporated an abortion storyline within the movie. The executives over at New Line Cinema took a chance, and I feel like they hit their mark with that chance. I also appreciate this film diving into the backstory of Freddy Krueger and explaining the Son of a Hundred Maniac story arc. We see Amanda Krueger, played by Beatrice Bopley, as she plays the key to Freddy Krueger's demise. But with that being said, let's start talking about some of the problems that I have with this movie. So, if the last task for Alice and Yvonne was to find Amanda Krueger in the tower at Weston Hills, how come she could reveal herself to Alice at the beginning of the movie? She informed her that she had to be released from her earthly prison, but she's out of her prison telling Alice this. Why do they need to release her when she can release herself, Splatterheads? And another thing, how is Freddy able to even come back and haunt the dreams of Alice when her unborn child has never had an encounter with Freddy Krueger? The premise from the previous films shows Freddy Krueger as a pandemic, only affecting those who actually know about him. Alice's unborn child has absolutely no clue who Freddy is, so how can he dream about Freddy? How can his dreams be used by Freddy? That's another thing that I had an issue with this film. But another issue that I had was Freddy's makeup in this movie. It looked nothing like the makeup from the previous two films, so much so that it took me out of the movie. I continuously asked why Freddy looked the way he looked throughout the movie. He looked weathered, old. How can a dream demon age is beyond me, Splatterheads. But last and certainly not least, I hate the fact that this film leaned heavily into the comedic aspect of Freddy Krueger. Tell me why there's a kill in the movie that sees Freddy feeding the victim in a high chair. Why does Freddy have to have so many one-liners during Dan's death? When Freddy's in the truck with Dan, it takes everything in me not to turn this movie off because of how cringe the one-liners are. But despite the flaws, A Nightmare on Elm Street 5 offers a unique visual aspect and an attempt at a deeper storyline within the franchise. While it may not reach the heights of the earlier installments, it stands as a bold but underwhelming entry and tries to expand on the mythology of Freddy Krueger, but falls extremely flat. So, Splatterheads, rating The Nightmare on Elm Street 5 The Dream Child, I would have to give it a 2.5 out of 5. While it tries to be innovative with the storytelling and dreamscapes, the puns, quips, and one-liners make it so hard to tolerate. At some point in this film, it gets slow and unbearable to sit through. But what do you think, Splatterheads? How do you feel about A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child? Is it one of your favorite movies of the series, or could you just do without it? Let's go ahead and have this conversation in the comment section. I would love to hear from you. Also, if you enjoyed this review or the previous reviews, please consider giving it a like and consider sharing this content. This way we can get Splatter Talk Cinema into the algorithm so it can get out to even more horror fans. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel. The next review that I'm going to do is Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, and trust me, you're not gonna wanna miss this. So, this has been your man Jay, Splatter Talk Cinema, straight talk only in this room, and it's a wrap.
We'll see, bitch. We'll just see.